Good morning and welcome back to my channel, Hightunnel and Field Tomato Production. Today is April the 26th, and before we go down the Hightunnel, which looks really good, I want to talk to you just a little bit this morning. I should have probably done this video here like maybe my first, second, third one, but so I want to talk to you all about the passion of growing things and tell you where my passion came from and a little bit about how I got started working in a Hightunnel. And I graduated in 1970, so I got a few years on a lot of y'all watching this. I grew up Elvis Presley, the Beatles, the music movement, the so-called hippie movement. Yes, I was a long hair guy for quite a few years there. But my parents always had gardens, as long as I can remember. My grandparents and my dad grew up in the Depression, and they had to grow. And I kind of adopted that desire to grow things from working around my dad and my grandparents. And in about 1968 or so, somewhere right in there, pot came to my area of America. And my brother smoked a little pot, and back in those days, pot came out of Mexico and it had seeds in it. And I got a couple of those seeds out of my brother's pot, put them in a little old pot, put them in the house there next to a lamp, and lo and behold, them things grew. Now, I'm really hoping that a lot of the local folks don't watch this part of the video, because I never told anybody about my past, but it is what it is. And anyway, I put those little seeds up into the garden area where my mom and dad had a garden, and lo and behold, they grew, and they grew, and they grew, and they got big. And yes, at some point I got in trouble over those. Nobody really knew what it was back in those days, and I was so curious to see what one of them plants would look like. Well, it did, and that's where I'm going to end that story. When I graduated in 1970, I had a good friend of mine. His daddy owned a lot of soil, a pretty good sized farm that he rented out in the St. Francis River bottom near an area called Burnt Cane in the Delta. And we had an okra shed, or a company called Stillwell Canning that bought okra from all the locals. Every little tenant farmer had a half-acre okra, make a little, cash money. Well, you only got 3.5 cents a pound for it. So we grew it that year, and although it was a very good learning experience, we didn't make a lot of money. We picked okra and picked okra and picked okra, and absolutely got sick of it. And somewhere in July, after it rained about every other day for 3 weeks, we abandoned the project. We had all we wanted of it. And then we kind of moved up to modern days, somewhere around 1981. I kind of got back into the gardening thing on my own. We lived in the Ouachita Mountains, had a restaurant, and I grew behind the restaurant there. And then somewhere around 1985, I moved up here to the Ozark, where I am now, and got the bright idea that I would grow blueberries, because I had seen some of them, and I knew there was an organization, so I got involved in growing blueberries. And so I love gardening. God gives you the water, the sunshine. He'll even give you the knowledge of how to grow it if you want to seek it out. I sought a lot of help from the County Extension Service, which knew way more than what I would have ever known. I'm very thankful for that. And then somewhere about 10, 12 years ago, one of my pickers, who actually worked for me picking, she was a gourmet cook. And she would work on and travel and work on some merchant marine ships and get some jobs overseas. And she went over to Ireland one year and worked for a farm that had high tunnels. And she told me all about it, and I was intrigued about it. And then a couple of years later, the government started funding some high tunnels through what we call the EQIP program. And so all I had to do was donate some repurpose, let's say, some land I had, and I grew some cover crops for them, for the wildlife, and they helped me build the high tunnel. And then I built another one, and all I had to do is take out a half-acre of some blueberries that was not a good variety. Just did not do well. They didn't hold well. Flavor was fair. But I took them out, and I put in a couple more. So I've built 4, and I've got 3 that I'm actually using. 2 of them I'm using as a high tunnel. One of them does not have plastic on it, but I'm growing some crop on that land anyway. So I just want you, I know a lot of y'all have a passion for growing things. The Hightunnel is so neat. Now here's probably the meat of my talk this morning is, in Arkansas this spring we've had rain after rain after rain. And if you try to grow a garden where I'm at, a lot of times, a lot of my neighbors, your green bean, purple seeds, they rot. And, excuse me, ground's just been too wet. When you have 5 out of 7 days that are raining, even if it's just 1/10 of an inch a day, they're staying too wet, not enough sunlight. And so that's where the Hightunnel comes in. The main purpose, I believe, of a Hightunnel, and I can quote a guy, one of the professors out in North Carolina, is disease control and controlling the water. Now you control the rainfall, you control probably 90% of diseases, and you can also reduce the bug effect. A lot of bugs don't like to come in the Hightunnel. That plastic disorients them. So I have a spray schedule, which I told you in one of my early videos. You ought to get on there and do a spray schedule for diseases every 7 to 10 days. And with tomatoes, you're going to spray before you get the disease. Once you get it, you're already in trouble. You weaken the plant. So you've really got to stay on top of that. I think one of my earlier videos I showed you I've got 3 or 4 different fungicides that I use, and I rotate them, which is advisable. And so we're getting ready. I'm going to take you down to the Hightunnel in just a minute and show you, but what I've been doing is pruning. And my method came from Bradley County, Arkansas, from the growers down there, and they call them, the suckers, they call them prunes. And so I like to use their term. Very simple method. You start with the first flower bud, and you leave one prune, one sucker below that first flower bud, take everything else off. For me, that works out to about 5 prunes. Your first seeds, your first leaves that come out are from your emerging seeds. They're called cotyledons, I believe, and you'll have 2 prunes there, and then at every section above it, every joint above that, you'll have one sucker, one prune. And so I start with the bottom, and I take off 5 up and leave it. If I've got 2 below that first flower, I'm not worried about it. It doesn't seem to matter a whole lot. And so that's what they've taught. If you're not careful, what will happen is one of those bottom suckers or prunes will start coming on strong, and he'll be equal with the top of your apical dominant. The apical being the top, the dominant being the main shoot of your tomato plant. And that thing will get up there and be almost even with it. And you've got the world's most bushy tomato, and you're going to have a lot of heavy tomatoes down low. They're hard to stake. I use the Florida weave. You can go online and look at that. You don't need me to sit here and show you a lot of videos about that. You'll see my stakes and weave when we go down there. But that works really good for me. You get a lot of production. I've told you before, I'm growing a Florida 75-14. I should average about 25 pounds to the plant if everything goes right. I've been having some trouble meeting that, but I think this year with my new fertilizing program, I think I'm going to be a lot better off. So just want to give you a little update on some information. Let's head down the tunnel and I'll give you a short tour. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. We're down here in the Hightunnel. I call this one Hightunnel number 4, and I believe this was planted around May the 2nd or 3rd, and then we'll go over to Hightunnel number 3, and it was planted somewhere a couple days later, around the 5th or so. So let me turn the camera around, let me show you what's going on. All right, here's just a little overview of the plants. I'm already to the 2nd string on tying plants up, and let me show you right here. Got some flower buds right there, and they're just starting to flower pretty good. I don't know how well I can do it. There's a flower bud or 2. You can probably see some of the, excuse me, let me zoom back out. A little hard to talk to y'all and work a camera too, but Let me just get down here and kind of ground level and give you just a little bit of look at these things, and they're actually doing quite well. Now let me walk through this one and let's go down to the next one. This is my day to fertilize. I've been fertilizing every other day, and one of my previous videos shows you my program on that. There's some more nice little flower buds and things. Okay, now we're going into the other tunnel. This one was actually planted 2 days, maybe 3, I think 2 days later. Not actually quite as big, but they're going to catch up probably and do just about the same. Now with the plants flowering, I can only guess we're talking 5 weeks out for a ripe tomato. That's a real hard thing to estimate. But here's what I'm going to do today. I left one plant unpruned, and I'm going to try to get down here. This is not going to be easy. But here's what I was talking about earlier. Okay, there's your bottom. And sometimes that bottom one's a little tough. There it goes. I count that as one. Now this is a pretty good size prune, ain't it? That's 2. And I don't know. Yeah, see, now this is the one just right off the bottom. Look at those flower buds. It's already trying to flower. That's why I'm going to put all this energy by pruning this, and that would be an awfully low to the bottom tomato to have to. That'd wind up in the ground if you didn't stake it really good. That's 2. There's 3. And they just snap, and what I like to do is I go left to right, just like that, and they snap right off. They're very juicy and tender. Now the flower bud is right up here. And there's the first one below. That'd be the first joint. There's really nothing there right now, believe it or not. And that's the second one below. But I'm going to leave that one. I like that one. That's just my method. So I hope this has been a little bit of help to you. I'll probably do one in just a few more days. But they are looking really good. No disease. They're about knee-high for me, and so I've got to get back to the house, get the fertilizer ready, and come back down. Thanks for watching. If you would, subscribe to it, leave a comment. I'll try to be a help to you. Thanks a lot. See you next time.